fire.
Make fire. Big fire. Hey YouTube community, we're coming to you live from somewhere just outside of Amarillo, Texas. You've watched our last video about what is overlanding, and today we're going to talk about what you really need to start overlanding, because it's one of the most common questions we get asked is, okay, I'm interested, I really dig this lifestyle.
I feel like it's for me.
Yep, like so what do I need to get started? And that's what we're going to cover today.
The good news is that you don't need a lot to start overlanding. You don't need a lot of gear or stuff, which is usually what people are talking about when they ask the question about how they get started.
And don't worry, we're going to get to some of the gear, and I know people are really interested in that. But first, like we told you in the last video, if you didn't watch that, go back and watch that. What is overlanding? Because in that video, we talked about the basics that you must have, the mandatory things that you must have to go overlanding. It's really not a lot of stuff, like Brittany said. So we're going to cover those first, and then we're going to get into some of the gear, and then we're going to wrap up with a little bit of, what would you say, like the qualities, the characteristics that you need to have this to do this.
Again, which has nothing to do with gear at all.
Right, but it's really the essential stuff, and that's the most important stuff.
So pop quiz, what are those 5 basic needs that we mentioned in the last video?
Do you remember?
All right, they're water, food, shelter, warmth or the ability to create warmth, and sleep. Those are the 5 things that anyone needs to survive, whether they're overlanding or camping or doing a military exercise or whatever it is. And remember, our goal is to get you out there as soon as possible. So we do not want you to get bogged down in a shopping list and throw away a lot of money on stuff that you don't actually need. We just want you to remember, all I need to go overlanding are those 5 things, and then I can go. And then this is what you do. You go. And you see what it's like, you find the kind of travel that suits you, maybe figure out, oh, I need a different vehicle, or this vehicle is gonna work just fine.
Or my pillow sucks and I'm not getting a good night's sleep.
Right, and then you can build from there. But don't go out and get a bunch of stuff before you've even gone overlanding to see what you like.
All right, so we're taking them one at a time. We're gonna start with the most important one, and that is water. Listen, not to be grim, but without water, you die. Some people say you can survive a week. In a harsh climate, you're probably looking at 3 days if you don't have any water. So the bottom line is you absolutely, this is a priority. I can't even stress it enough.
I don't think you need convincing.
Right?
You probably know that you need water.
Well, and sometimes people don't realize the harshness of the environment that you might end up in overlanding, or the situation that you might be in. And at minimum, it's recommended 3/4 of a gallon per person per day, and that's just for drinking. That doesn't involve washing hands or cooking or anything else.
Washing dishes.
Nothing.
Nothing.
And you guys, this may be TMI, too much information, but one of the best ways to tell if you're hydrated enough when you're out there is that your urine should be like a transparent yellow color. If it's dark or something, then you're not getting enough fluids. Also, headaches. You can get headaches when you start getting dehydrated. And so it's really important when you drink water, and I'm always telling Brittany and Caspian this, they'll take a drink of water, I'll say have a little bit more. Always have just a skosh more than you think you need or than you think that you want. Give yourself that little bit of extra.
Yeah, don't wait until you're thirsty to have water. So how do you carry water in your vehicle? Well, there are a lot of options on the market, and we've used several of them.
Yeah, several.
So we have Rotopacks in our North American overland build that we used. We had 2 of them that we had. We've used collapsible water containers. I think they're less than $10 a piece, and they have a little spigot on them. And when you're not using them, they're really easy to store and lightweight.
And recently we just got the MSR Dromedary.
Yeah, that was a find this year.
And we're really happy with it. Matter of fact, we carried it over into our new build with it, that as well.
Yeah, and speaking of our new build and what we're going to take around the world, we now have a Lifesaver jerrycan, which is amazing because it has a filtration system that filters out viruses and bacteria.
Yeah, it's top notch. And then we also have inside the Alu-Cab Canopy camper behind us there, we have the Alu-Cab water tank, which holds 13 gallons of water as well. So we're carrying plenty of water. We're not telling you to do something that we're not doing ourselves, but we can't stress that enough. Water is critical.
All right, number 2 on our list of basic needs for overlanding/survival is food.
Yeah, and without food, you die. And again, not to be grim, but it's kind of it's a good rule of thumb to remember. They say 3 days without water and 3 weeks without food. And so it's possible to survive for 3 weeks. Brittany would absolutely not survive as long as I would, because I got a lot of extra fat on my body compared to this gal here.
I get hangry in like 2 hours without eating. For some people, the idea of knowing what food to take on an overlanding trip can feel really overwhelming, but it really doesn't have to be, even when you go international. I've actually written an extensive article on food and water while overlanding, and we will link it in the description so that you can read it.
But the bottom line is you got to have food, you got to have a way to carry it and a way to store it.
And if you want cooked food, you need a way to cook it.
Now, some of you might argue, I don't need to cook my food. I'm hardcore. I eat raw berries and I forage and I hunt my food and eat it raw right out of the lake. That's not us. If that's you, good on you. But Brittany cooks for us, and she's going to tell you what we use.
There are so many different ways to cook your food, right? I mean, it can be as simple as a fire and a roasting stick, obviously dependent on burn bans, which happen all over the country, and as elaborate as a full-on, like, built-in cooking system where it all just kind of, like, rolls out beautifully and opens up, and then magically you're all ready to cook.
I think those come complete with a cook, right? Like when you pay that level of money, you get
with a uniform and everything. No, so we're somewhere in between. So for the past few years, we've been using the Jetboil Genesis Base Camp system. We absolutely love it. It's a 2-burner clamshell design, and so it stores really compact, and then you open it and you have 2 burners. Awesome. But it runs on propane, and we're steering away from propane for our global overland trip. And so we actually just got a new stove that I just used for the first time today, and it is a Coleman multi-fuel stove that can run on white gas and on unleaded gasoline. So as long as the Jeep can move, we'll have gasoline for our stove.
And obviously, if you're carrying food, you need a way to store it. You need a way to keep it cool if you're going to carry refrigerated food. So for us, we've had 2 different refrigerators. On our North American build, we have the ARB 50-quart fridge freezer. And on Dauntless, we have the National Luna 50 Legacy. And they've both been great fridges. We're really excited about this fridge here on Dauntless. It gets really dialed in, but it's a great way to cool your food. But again, if you're just getting started, you don't even need all that. Just make sure you have a way to keep your meat cool, and things that have to stay cold. Yeah, perishables, keep them cold. So even, a little cheap cooler with some ice in it.
Because that's going to keep you healthy, right? Because if we don't keep our food at the proper temperature, then we can get stomach bugs and we're away from home. It's a recipe for disaster.
Right. And then you need a way to store it too. So we use a lot of Tupperware containers when we first started. Sometimes we still use a few, not too many anymore. Now we're using a lot of the Cetus Summit gear that can actually screw on basically and hold the food in there. But bottom line is you need a way to store your food, and you need to be aware of whatever predators might be in your area that are attracted by food, and even some scavengers like raccoons and stuff. Like, you don't want to leave stuff in your, in your bag where you're carrying all your trash on the back of your vehicle. Be very, very careful about that and be aware of your surroundings. So storage, refrigeration, and the ability to cook, and that basically covers food. All right, the next thing you have to cover is shelter. You have to cover yourself. And that can be as simple as tree branches and leaves if you want to be really, really hardcore, but you need to have some way to protect yourself. So shelter is important. It's critical. For us, in our original build, that looked like a rooftop tent. For us now, it's the Alu-Cab Canopy camper, which you guys have seen on Dauntless. But a shelter can literally be just a sleeping bag in the back of your vehicle.
Yeah, you definitely don't have to start there. You can start, like Eric said, with making a sleeping platform in the back of your vehicle and having a sleeping bag and a pillow. You can take a ground tent with you. You can have a hammock that you sling between 2 trees. There are so many different options. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars just to go out on your first overlanding trip.
Yeah.
Get out and see what works for you, especially if you're more than one person and different people's needs need to be met. Having a shelter is key, not only physically, but psychologically. A shelter protects you from the sun, from extreme temperatures, from the elements, and from insects.
All right, number 4 we said is warmth. A lot of people refer to this as fire, but the human body doesn't really need fire in order to survive. It does, however, need the ability to stay warm, and fire is the easiest, cheapest way to make that happen.
The fire is coming this way.
Oh, okay. Let me cover your eyes. So you need a way to make a fire is the easiest way. It could be as simple as waterproof matches and dried tinder, or you could go really fancy and get a flamethrower.
We've seen them.
It's a real thing. And we might have one.
We have fire starters, matches, dry tinder, a small flamethrower.
That's very small. It's not what you're picturing.
It's just a little thing that you attach to the end of a propane bottle and, yeah.
Make fire.
Make fire. Like we've been saying, you don't have to have fire to survive, but you do have to have warmth. So get yourself a high quality sleeping bag at a very minimum, one rated below freezing temperatures. We've carried the Lost Ranger sleeping bag for Caspian. He's super cute in it. And we have stayed in the Big Agnes Dream Island.
It's a double sleeping bag.
Yeah, for us. And, you know, then you can have other tools too. We actually used to have a Mr. Heat. We still do have it. We just don't have it in this rig. We have a Mr. Heater, which is a portable propane heater that we've used before. And then in this rig, we actually have a Webasto heater that draws from the fuel tank, and we can actually increase the temperature inside our Alu-Cab Canopy camper. Bottom line is, make sure you have warmth covered. Don't sleep on that. Speaking of sleep, that is number 5. That is number 5, sleep. You must have the ability to get sleep. You know, I don't think it's ever been proven that you can die from a lack of sleep, but there was a test done. Did you know this, Brittany? There was a test done on rats.
I don't like this.
And they were fed, and they were given water, and they were given a place to play, but they were not allowed to sleep, and after 32 days, all the rats were dead. Don't recommend that we try that experiment with human beings, but just remember,
not try it with anyone else.
Sleep deprivation is actually used as a form of torture. So don't torture yourself. Make sure you have whatever it is you need to get a good night's sleep. And for us, again, we've mentioned our sleeping bags. We carry good pillows. We carry our full-size pillows that we're happy with, and then we also have a sleeping pad.
We do. We didn't used to have one, but we started to have some neck and back pain, and so we realized that we should invest in a Big Agnes sleeping pad that fit our double sleeping bag, and that was an awesome decision, really easy to use, and gave us both a better night's sleep.
Right, but again, you don't even need anything that, you know, elaborate. You can actually just get a good blanket and fold it up, double it up, and use that as a pad. It keeps you off the ground a little bit if you're on a ground tent. It keeps the ground temperatures away from your body and gives you that little bit of extra padding. Hey, Caspian, do you like your bed?
Yes.
What do you like about your bed?
Well, it's really comfortable.
Do you get a good sleep in your bed?
Yeah, I'm way comfortable right now. One time, I was sleeping like with my head to there, and I would never get up. I would never, ever get up. I'm just so comfortable.
Here's a list of gear that we think is really important to take with you. Nothing on this list, in my opinion, is superfluous. You definitely would want to have this with you. So here we go. First aid kit.
Fire extinguisher.
A shovel.
A tarp.
Zip ties. Jeeper's best friend, any Overlander's best friend.
Bungee cords.
Trash bags.
A communication device.
A whistle.
A spare set of keys for your vehicle.
A good knife.
Any medication that you need.
Rain jacket.
Extra socks.
Toothbrush.
Chapstick.
550 paracord.
A mess kit.
Utensils.
Insect repellent.
Sunscreen.
Work gloves.
A hatchet.
And a lantern, flashlight, or another light source.
Please note, you guys, this is not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination. If you want to see our exhaustive list for what we carry in North America, and what we have loaded in Guardian, our Jeep Wrangler, you can check out our master overland packing list by going to ourlesslife.com and just doing a search. Maybe we can link it in the bottom of the video here, but that'll give you the exhaustive list. But the stuff we just covered is the stuff that I consider essential that you really have to have when you head out on the trails. All right, so now you've got your 5 basics covered, and maybe you have some of that stuff that we just covered on that list, and now you're ready to get out there and start exploring. Well, we encourage you to do so, but I want to give you a pro tip. When you go out, take the time to make a list of everything that you're taking with you in your vehicle. When you're out, take the time to put a check mark next to everything that you actually used. This way, when you're done with your trip, you can see what you carried that you never used. Make 2 or 3 trips this way, and eventually you're going to start to see a pattern that you're actually carrying some stuff that you've never used and probably will never use. Try and get rid of that stuff, but also keep another list of the things you wish you had, like you forgot something, I didn't have this.
The things you missed.
Right, and add those to the list, and in this way you start to hone in and dial in your overlanding kit for your style of travel.
We've talked about the basic needs and the gear that goes with them to answer the question, what do I really need to start overlanding? But there are a few characteristics that we also think that you need. A desire to explore, a sense of adventure, tenacity, and self-reliance. And if you have those 4 things or are committed to developing them, then you're on solid ground and have some wonderful adventures ahead of you.
We hope you've been enjoying this series. It's only video 2 in this series. We've got much more to come. Thank you again. We'll see you in the next video.